Good morning or good afternoon, I guess, depending on where you are. I'm great
Yeah.
and I'm excited to be with you.
As of 2 minutes ago, it's afternoon for me.
Okay. All right. Well, it's still morning for me, so I think we probably cross all the time zones.
Yeah. Where are you calling in from?
From Houston.
Oh, from Houston. Is it
Yeah.
is it real hot already, or are you still right under?
No, it's beautiful. We've had a couple of beautiful spring days. We don't get very many of these, so we have to take advantage of them while we have them. It will be not too long and we'll be in the 90s and humidity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
truly. It's you're speaking the truth. It's such a gift to enjoy those. So please do enjoy them. Go
Yes.
outside after this call, JoAnne.
Exactly, exactly. That may or may not be one of the tips and tricks for today.
Oh, yeah, well, we're going to talk about that. So, I'm a huge advocate of self-care because I had to learn the hard way of not doing it for a while to learn how important it was so that I can be, as you described in your bio there, my best self. So, I would love to hear about a bit about your journey of how this became part of what you do and how you work and how you got to PwC.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm a partner at PwC. I've been with the firm for over 30 years, and similar to what you described, some of this is just a journey, and how I worked and how I operated when I was new in my career versus where I am now, has evolved, and some of that I think is significant culture shift in the firm. And in the workplace in general. And then some of it is just my knowing myself better and being more attuned to the things that I know are kind of triggers for me in terms of starting to build stress and burnout and being very mindful and aware of those.
Mm. Yeah, it's the awareness factor is really important.
It is. It is. And I think being very intentional too about what you're going to do to take care of yourself, and prioritizing that, building that into your day are also really important for being successful.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of the first signs of burnout and how do you address it before it becomes overwhelming?
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously it's going to vary by individual, but for me, what I notice is I start to get very anxious about things. And I can just feel myself physically tensing up. Yes, the shoulders are for me are one of
Yeah.
the key signs.
Shoulders, throat, and gut for me. The throat is so like it clenches up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that for me it's all in the shoulders or I'll grit my teeth and I won't realize it. Yeah, I won't realize it until I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really very tense." So I think that's one thing. It's also it also manifests itself in an inability to make progress on things. I may have a to-do list that is, organized, but actually making progress and completing some of those tasks becomes difficult because I think it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy too, that once you feel stressed, then it's hard to make a decision. So then you're more stressed because you have more to do and more, more to make decisions about.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I realized that sometimes when I was yawning, I would clench my teeth and stretch, and I was like, oh, that's the opposite of what a yawn is supposed to do.
Right.
And I'd be like, oh, I should open my mouth and release the stress.
Yes, exactly. Yes, again, being intentional, right, and being aware that you're doing those things is goes a long way towards helping to deal with it.
Yeah. I heard someone told me once that setting boundaries is a loving act, but they can be really tough, especially in high pressure environments. So, what's one of the most effective ways you found to protect your time and well-being while still being a good coworker at work?
Yeah, I think it really starts with an important part of a dynamic in a team, and that is communication. On our teams, on my teams, we have on the agenda when we start a new project what everybody is going to do to focus on their wellness. So it's built into kind of our day to day. We have a designated wellness champion who, can help people to, come up with ideas or help to facilitate them if that's what they're interested in doing. So I think one is talking about it. And if you're, certainly if you're in a supervisory kind of position, you can lead by doing that to ensure that that's on the agenda. But then I also think that it is, again, back to the point of being intentional, blocking out time on your calendar. It's as important as the meeting that you have, the time that you set aside for doing work. This needs to be that same kind of priority, while also being flexible, that if things are shifting and you need to adjust the time, you do that, but that you still make it a priority. Because if you don't put it in your calendar, it's less likely to happen, for one. But you also have to be flexible, just like anything.
Mm-hmm. In your experience, what are the first things you recommend to people if they are having this burnout experience? What do you, if you're noticing it in a team member or someone you're working with, how do you approach that conversation? Because if I'm feeling burnout, I might already be a bit activated.
Yeah, I think it's being aware not only of yourself, but also what's going on with your team, and having a conversation about how they're feeling, or suggesting, let's go, in the afternoon, let's go for a walk over to the coffee shop, or let's just go for a walk around the building. And my teams do that on a routine basis. Some of them actually have it very, they're very scheduled and regimented about when they do it and how they do it. I think also, stepping away when you're starting to feel that tension. I think we, especially if you're in a high pressured environment, have a tendency to take your lunch at your desk and not really step away and decompress. And some of managing the stress is being proactive in a way that you don't get to a position where you're tense. So the more that you can do up sort of upfront and on a proactive basis, the less likely you're going to get stressed out in a particular situation. So I think as a leader, if you can intervene when you see sort of the signs that the team is getting, that a person on your team is getting stressed, you can help them to manage that.
Yeah. What was it in your career that, what was that shift for you to say, oh, I need to focus on this. Perhaps I need to work on this for myself. Now I want to help other people improve this for them.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that there's a specific point in time. I just think in it, as I have evolved in my career, and my priorities, not only at work but in life, have shifted. I have just realized that it's become such an important part of success and being fulfilled. I think too that as I mentioned, there's been some cultural shift within our firm over the course of my career. Taking a afternoon walk and coffee break, when I started 30 years ago, nobody would do that. And now I think we value that people are their best selves when they are their whole selves, and that happens when they're able to manage their stress and be fulfilled, not only in what's going on at work, but also just as who they are as a human being.
Yeah. What are some of the wins for you in, because you practice this work, you're practicing what you preach. What is it when JoAnna's like, oh, that was this, it's working. It's working. What I'm doing is working.
Yeah, it is those moments of feeling stress and tension are definitely more minimized. It's also, I'm much more productive, and I just know my mood is different.
Mm,
It's a lot easier to be interactive with the folks on my team. It's a lot easier to have more casual conversations rather than being so tense and so focused on that tension. That I would just say that it's a lot. it is my best self when I'm doing the things that I need to do. And I think the other really key thing is you also have to have grace for yourself. There
Mm,
isn't a way to completely eliminate stress. There just isn't, right? I mean, that's a part of life. But having said that, when things are not going the way that you have planned, even if you're very intentional and aware, having grace for yourself is such an important part of it.
mm. You're the second person to bring up grace for ourselves today. It's a reoccurring
So
theme.
important.
What does
Yes.
grace for yourself mean to JoAnna?
I tend to have very high standards for myself. And so when I'm not making the progress that I expect and achieving the things that I expect, I just, it really adds to the stress, frankly. And I just become more introverted. The tension level increases significantly. And so that's part of that self-fulfilling, cycle that you get on, I think, that is just, it's hard to break out of. Um, so I really, particularly as I've gotten, more experienced, tried to be mindful of the fact that you can make a misstep and then you take a deep breath. You take one of the, go for a walk, whatever the act is, that you disconnect a little bit and then you start over. And
Mm,
you do each day is the best that you can do.
I love that. It all seems very Buddhist.
Yeah,
You can always begin again. It's very mindful based.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That or whatever system you subscribe to, right? We can always be reborn, we can be refreshed and to not dwell on the past.
Right, exactly. I think that whole idea of being refreshed is really important not to lose sight of.
Yeah. What do you so you have a walk, you have a deep breath. What are other ways you drop into releasing and feeling that refreshed
Yeah.
feeling? Yeah.
For me, it's I like to be very organized. So having a very clear plan for the day or the week is helpful, in keeping myself kind of organized and on task. And I find that when I have that on paper, I know kind of what I need to get done. And so I'm not just, in my own head about, oh my gosh, I have all this stuff to do. The stuff is detailed. And when you start to take it in bite-sized pieces, it's much easier than, letting that voice in your head get so loud that that's all that you can hear and focus on. The other thing that I have found, and this is a means to an end, is frankly exercising regularly is really helpful for me. I hate every minute of it. There's not a day that I think, oh gosh, I just can't wait to get up tomorrow and exercise. That I know there are people like that. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Must
That
be
is,
nice.
yes, it is not me. But I never get to the end of a workout and say, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't done that. And so I think there's something to be said for, that is a release of sorts as well.
Truly, we are it's in our DNA, right? That we need to burn off this stress. Before it was hunting food and running from predators and all this stuff, and it was a way
Yeah.
for our bodies to expel this. And now we're at our computers and we're in our heads, and we need to get back into our bodies to burn off that stress.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think people will find different ways to do that. And for me, like I have not faithfully exercised for a large part of my career. This, I think, is one of those things that, as you mature and frankly age, that you have to make life changes. And I, you can start small. When I did start exercising, I started exercising small. I walked, now I run for the most part, not very fast, but anything that you do, you can start in a bite-sized piece and set a goal for yourself to, do whatever it is that you're going to do for whatever time seems reasonable, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then expand on that as you need to.
Yeah, I love that. It's the reoccurring theme is baby steps, small steps.
Right, right. And when you take a step back, that grace is so important. And then you
Yeah,
just get back on, and even though that is a really hard thing to do, you have to, you owe it to yourself.
right. And I find because I can go through the waves of being very proactive about self-care in some ways or working out, and then I completely fall off the wagon, and there can be feelings of guilt or shame. How do you help people man or work through some of those feelings? Because you can also feel guilt and shame for actually practicing self-care,
Right.
because other people might find that they might be confused by it, they might not understand the motivation behind it. Maybe we're worried they perceive us as being selfish. How do you help people work through all of that?
Yeah, I think in the conversations that my team has around what each of us is going to do for well-being or around well-being, some of it is encouraging people who maybe aren't doing some of those things to give it a shot. Because I don't, I think sometimes the people that are maybe have the views about, sort of the negative side of the things that you just talked about is because they don't feel empowered to be able to do it. And I think the
Mm,
more that we can be supportive of one another on our teams to be able to do that, the more likely that people are going to do it. And that's, it sort of breeds itself. And then the more you talk about it, then it becomes more ingrained in just what you do. And then when things get busy and you sort of take a fall back, you have somebody there to help remind you to start again.
yeah, we're not in this alone.
Right, exactly. Right. I mean, we're there to support each other in the work that we're doing, but we're also there to support each other in our development and our well-being and in all the aspects of what it means to work together.
Yeah. What are other ways that PwC helps with the personal development? I'm sure there are many ways through.
Yes, the firm has a number of benefits. And again, there had been a focus. Now I would say it's much more just ingrained in who we are. Probably 10 or 15 years ago, it was much more intentional about being focused on well-being. It's more just ingrained, right? So the benefits that we offer, whether that's mindful access to mindfulness apps. In the office, we have ping pong tables and pop a shot and that kind of a thing
Fun.
too. Yeah, so that if we have massage chairs too, so that if people need,
Sign me up.
yeah, exactly, and walking desks. So I mean, it sort of covers the gamut, but it gives people kind of that physical release and a break, and it's easily accessible. So I think that is in our the benefits that we offer continue to evolve as new things become available in the marketplace. But there's conversation about those, and we spotlight them in various communications so that people are aware of what's available.
Mm, I love that. Are there, see, I love how you mentioned earlier when you were starting out your career, maybe going for a walk was unheard of, or people didn't do that 10 years ago, start to ingrain mindfulness and well-being, and now it's just part of the culture. Where do you see it going 5, 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that it just becomes a part of what you do on a daily basis. Um, that's I We're not particularly innovative in, as human beings. And so thinking outside the box, especially for me, can be a bit of a challenge because that's just not kind of how I'm wired. Um, but I do think that it will continue to be a focus. And I think that, we ask people what kinds of things they're interested in. And, we use those ideas to generate the kinds of programs that we offer people. So I imagine that'll continue to be a big focus.
Mm, mm. So you love to walk, you love to maybe go on a run. What are the things that keeps JoAnna happy, healthy, showing up to work? Do you play some ping pong too? Do you utilize the
Yeah,
ping
well, my kids have got me into playing pickleball. Well, we
pickleball? That's
played
kind of
pickleball. Yes, we
yeah.
played pickleball when they were all home from breaks over the holidays,
Oh,
which was fun, although a bit of a challenge. And to my comment earlier about having very high standards for myself, that was a frustrating experience. But to the extent that I can be outside, even in the hot, humid Houston weather, I like to do that. Whether that's working outside and gardening, or
mm,
or being at our pool, those kinds of things are always really uplifting. During the workday, we have a schedule where we work some days in the office or at a client site and some days at home. Oftentimes I'll spend some time outside on the patio working. Again, a bit of fresh air, change of scenery, which I think is always good for my own state of mind.
yeah. So it's interesting to hear that you have a hybrid approach still, where you can go from home and come into the office.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And we've been doing that for quite some time. And we're expected to be in the office 3 days a week, so it's very flexible. But it's nice. I think our teams really enjoy having the ability to kind of do what works best for their schedules and for their life within the confines of some requirements. But it also, oftentimes those days at home are a bit harder in terms of being focused on managing, kind of maybe your stress and well-being, from the sense that you're sitting by yourself, you're in front of your computer. And so I think in those on those days, it's particularly important to, when you get on calls, to have some icebreaker, or sort of informal conversation, not just solely focused on work, because it's very easy to just be, focused on the task at hand.
Yeah, yeah. Are there times when you help people navigate the difference between boundaries and conflict resolution? What is that relationship?
Yeah, that is something that is important, particularly because at PwC we work almost exclusively in teams, and so you're going to have those dynamics. And I think it's really trying to understand the perspective from both sides, and helping the other person to see the other perspective, and while also trying to figure out how we can bridge kind of that gap, because that's typically what the issue is, right? That the expectations are in one place and what the person's doing is somewhere else, and so there's something missing, and kind of working through what that gap is, and how we can close it together, um, before it becomes really problematic, kind of getting ahead of it, in the early time.
Yeah, because a little bit of disagreement can be healthy, right? That's how you can
Yes.
brainstorm and figuring all of that out and finding the balance between maybe nipping it in the bud before it even becomes an issue and we're speaking the same language in our team.
Yes. Yes. Robust dialogue is really important. And differing opinions are really important. I think
Yeah.
we are better individually and as a team when you have different perspectives and people can hear and experience those. At the end of the day, we have to reach some agreement on what the path forward is. But we should be able to have conversation about that and not have people walk away being angry or upset, or
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
So you've had a healthy relationship to PwC. What makes you excited to keep showing up to work each day?
Yeah, I mean, I think the firm is just in an amazing place with respect to development, personal development and professional development. Having the opportunity to work with people who are similarly minded brings out the best in me. And so even after 30 years, I get a lot of my energy from our less experienced staff,
Mm,
because what while they may be learning the technical from me, I'm learning new ways of doing things. I had a was able to join the last couple of minutes of your previous speech when they were talking about AI, and that's focus for us. But they're the folks that have recently hired that are just out of college are using the tools like that in a much different way than I am. And so there's an opportunity, I think, to learn from them. And that also, I think, contributes to my overall well-being, because I feel like we're creatures that need to continue to learn and evolve and develop. And that's a relationship that goes both ways.
Absolutely. And I love in this time in history right now, we have the most generations in a single workforce. We have 4 generations spanning potentially in a single office.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that the new generation can learn from the seniors and vice versa, like you're saying, because there are systems and ways of working on things that are extremely valuable that seniors can know. And then there are senior positions,
Yes.
and there's folks in the new ways that are coming, and you're like, oh, you can actually do it this way. You're like, oh.
Yeah, right. Or I'll
Yeah.
be watching them on their computers and see them, do something, quick and easy. And I'll say, okay, show me how to do that, because that would have taken me a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, JoAnna, this has been absolutely wonderful. I think I flubbed your name when you came in, so I apologize about
No
that.
worries.
Yeah, my apologies. My little dyslexic eyes can play tricks on me sometimes. So
No
thanks for
problem.
rolling with it.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed speaking with you, Hunter.
Oh, I enjoyed speaking with you too. What's the best way for folks to keep the conversation going with you if you want to, they want to reach out?
I'm on LinkedIn, so that's probably the easiest way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. And what's your prized flower or plant in your garden, JoAnna? You said you like garden.
We have beautiful Gerber daisies all over our yard. There's not a lot that is heat tolerant and
Yeah,
also cold tolerant, which
yeah.
occasionally we have to deal with here as
Hey, you
well.
got some cold snaps this year.
We
Didn't
did,
it snow
yeah.
once?
It did, which was incredible. Yes, we actually had some accumulation. So
Yeah.
yes, it was quite a different experience for us. But yeah, daisies are one of my favorite.
Oh, I love daisies.
Yeah.
All right, JoAnna, thank you so much for coming by today. I hope you come back. I learned so much from you today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too now.